Good morning, good afternoon, or evening, whichever and wherever you may be tuning in from. Welcome to the Truck Around and Find Out podcast. This is where we like to get together, discuss some of our fun and hot topics surrounding the trucking, safety, community, and our lives up here in northern Colorado. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan Byers, the DOT guy. I am the owner of Front Range Compliance and DOT University. We've got Redbeard with us today. Luke is sitting at the helm. He is our editor and training coordinator here at Front Range Compliance. Been booking some classes for DOT University. Hopefully things are going well there. Keith couldn't join us today. Keith is the works at Rush Truck Centers, and he is the owner of Rocky Mountain Peterbilt on YouTube. He's got some beautiful trucks on there when he showcases them. I think Keith is out today trying to push some of them trucks out on the road, and hopefully he gets a couple sales. Keith, we miss you, but we'll catch you on one of the next episodes. So with that being said, Luke, how are things going DOT University?
They're going good. We updated a class here a couple months ago, and it has been selling pretty darn well.
Really?
So, yep.
Really? And which class was that?
That was the reasonable suspicion testing training for supervisors.
It needed an update. It definitely needed
it.
And it was fun doing all that marijuana research. I'm sure people will interpret that to be like, oh, you did some marijuana research, you know. I'm just remembering my college days, that kind of thing, you know, those younger days. But yeah, definitely interesting with the use of weed in the workplace. I mean, it's so brazen. People are, I think it's the marijuana industry as a whole. They're just using that product. They're developing it to where it could be used in open view, open sight, and you never notice it. So, and the number one tested substance of
By
all
far.
of the substances, it's got a big lead, and I don't think it's going to get any better. Funny note on that, we just did that audit for that one organization. It's a state organization. I don't want to name anything particular to kind of throw them under the bus, but I would say they got one of those 3-letter organizations. So, that's not going to give it away because I can think of several. But reading through their drug and alcohol policy, they had everything mashed into one. So their DOT policy and their regular drug, they had it all mashed into one. And I found it very, very interesting because I was reading through that and discovered, oh, hey, this state organization allows the use of marijuana while off duty.
Yep.
And I was like, really? That's very interesting.
Very fascinating.
Very fascinating. And so I kind of scolded them a little bit and said, look, for your drug-free workplace, you can really write that however you want to write that. I'm not here to cast judgment or anything like that. If you want your folks, smoking weed, it doesn't seem like that's a good group of people to have smoking weed.
No.
They're a large enough organization, and I think they have enough turnover that they're just trying to entice and get people in there. But anyways, I did tell them, you've got to separate your policies. You need to have 2 standing policies. Don't try to mesh them together. It's too easy to get stuff misinterpreted. And next thing you know, you got somebody, think, especially with the order that, they're going to reclassify THC from a Schedule 1 substance to a Schedule 3. But, even in transportation, you got to remember that when it comes to the drug and alcohol, it does prohibit any Schedule 1 substance, but marijuana is listed independently. They don't list it in the regulation as a Schedule 1 or a Schedule 3. It's named by name. So marijuana is not leaving the DOT sites anytime soon. So, and I mean, I think just the full-on legalization of it, they already have in some states, but federally, until the science is behind it that they can determine, hey, if somebody consumes THC, that kind of thing, and when it exits their system. So I'm kind of going off on a tangent right now. That wasn't even in my notes of what I wanted to talk about today, but such a good topic to talk about. And we should do an episode just on the THC products. We
should.
You think we could get a volunteer to come in and, tell us a little bit about some products? You got to have one of them friends somewhere in your cycle that we could probably bring in that's in the know.
Probably could. All of my buddies are all getting clean. So.
Everybody, you grow up. It's amazing. Grow up, get wives, start a family, start a profession. It's like, oh, hey, I can't be a pothead anymore.
That's
you
right.
know, it's
Yeah,
like,
that's
hey,
right.
when you guys turned 21, you know, that was exciting. You could go to the dispensaries and do that kind of thing. But then you decide to grow up, and it's amazing how many career professions are like, yeah, no, we don't want you doing that kind of thing. So especially on the safety side of things.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if you want to get into tech and, you know, go work behind a computer all day, I don't think that industry really cares. But, you know, the more THC they got, the longer they can get those people to sit down and concentrate. I guess, I don't know, stare at your computer all day. Anyways, I'm just kind of joking. Joking aside, though, I think that would be a fun topic.
I agree.
Get in
I
and
agree.
talk about some of the different products and that kind of thing. Better for when we do our video podcast. So, which big news today? The studio, it's going to be complete here pretty quick. So I know I said, I don't know what, a month ago, we should have it up and running in 2 weeks. Nothing moves fast on Ryan's timeline. So I get so busy working on so many other projects and trying to run front range compliance that, you know, setting aside the time to get other little projects done seem that they could get on the back burner. But you got the wall painted. It looks beautiful. So we did like that accent wall, really nice color on the background. The logo, I don't know if I told the audience yet what I did with the logo.
I don't think so.
We had these really cool decals printed, and I was just going to do a wall decal kind of for the back. So I had them printed up, and it came, whoa, smacking the mic. It came out really shiny. And so when the lights hit it, it's just like a glare. And I was like, okay, these aren't going to work. Well, the first logo they sent to us got damaged in shipping, and somebody crushed the box, so it had all kinds of folds in it. So I got the great idea because it's a pretty, you know, badass looking logo.
It
so
is. Yeah,
I was like,
is.
you know, we did definitely got a cool logo built up. So one of these days we're going to have merch available. Hopefully we're that kind of a channel. But we went and I had this thing made up. It was damaged. They were like, hey, no problem. We'll send you another one. So they sent me a whole nother one. Hell, now I've got another logo. So I've got an extra. So I was like, the damaged one, I could deal with that. And since we did the big garage project, which I've talked about, the fridge, like the beverage fridge, you know, the beer fridge, let's just call it what it is, you know. So I went out. And I was like, well, putting stickers and stuff like that on there. I was like, that'd be super cool. Put that on there. So all by myself, I've got this 36-inch by 30-inch sticker, big old like oversized decal. My brain, I said, oh, I can get this on there. I started putting it on the fridge door, and I knew very, very quickly I was, heading down the wrong path. So I had creases in the sticker, and when I was trying to stretch them out, like to pull them apart, it was like distorting the sticker, and I was already committed. There was no going back from it from that point, and I was just like, okay. So then I sat in front of the fridge on my little stool, and I was popping bubbles and flattening them out. Yeah, that was an hour, and I probably could spend a couple more hours out there. So anyways, long story short, we started talking about that logo, the difficulty I had, looking at some of the other wall decals we have here around the office, because we got couple really beautiful, like when you walk up the stairs to our training room, we've got the big DOT University, and then over the wall down in our office, you got a big circle with the front range compliance logo. Our office looks pretty cool. But you know, you could just see the backing, like the drywall's not necessarily smooth. It's just got that knockdown texture. So it's kind of bumpy and it's shiny. And I'm like, okay, this isn't going to work. So we found a local print shop here in Loveland, Minuteman Press, and we went up there and talked to them. And they made up our logo with a more of a flat finish with a styrofoam backer board. And we're doing like Holly with her decorating projects has found these new things called tiles, wall tiles, or they're you can get pictures made up, and they've got little magnets on the back, so you can swap them out and change them and do that kind of thing. And of all the things I've had to install for our decoration at the house, this is by far the easiest, because it's like, tell me where you want, give me a level, tell me how you want them spaced, and you know, pull off in some adhesive, and boom, they're stuck up. And then you know, you just can do some micro adjusts, and they're pretty good. So super easy. So I got that idea. Hey, we're going to use these. So we got the new logo, and we'll put that on there, and then we can swap that. So doing our videos for DOT University and any videos that we do for front range compliance, you know, we got that. We can use that studio for multi-use. So that's kind of the plan. We're working on it, and hopefully we'll be doing that shot. But yeah, I think when we do that video, our first video, that'd be a great one to showcase, because we can put it on camera. I guess that means we're going to have some products here. I don't know. We'll figure out a way to do that. So the way that we don't totally incriminate anybody or that kind of thing. But even if they're just pictures, but it'll still be video so we can show them. So probably won't have the products here. But anyways, that kind of thing. So yeah, studio is going to be almost done. But with that, with DOT University, we're also in the process for one of our big local companies, doing a big training for them and getting some onboarding training put together. We're doing some driving, pre-trip, post-trip, a little bit of cargo securement in there, doing a little bit of training so that when they hire people, move them into this roles, they can log into our LMS system and they can get the training, and just at will they can come in and take it, whenever they need to and test on it. So it's going to be really, really great for some onboarding training, that kind of thing. Just have to dedicate the time to getting all that stuff done. But yeah, Luke, you've been hard working on that. We took a bunch of pictures of their gear and their equipment, and I think I got to give you kudos, because when you were taking pictures, I thought the room was way too dark, but it did. Your pictures turned out real good.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I'm super excited to finish up that training and get that shot and rolled out for that organization. And for DOT University, because, it'd be super cool to just get a lot of companies that we know and we work with that they can use our online training and they can train. It seems like there's still a lot of taboo on online training, like people in transportation just aren't going to do it. And I'm just going to say this: failure to train is negligence. Don't miss an opportunity to train, is what I was taught years ago. And this is kind of one of those factors. Online training is better than no training. And I'd like to believe that we try to do it good. So I tell everybody, look, it's the same stuff. I'm going to make the same corny jokes that I make in live, or whether we're doing it online, that kind of thing. You're going to get the information there, and it's a great, great resource. We try to really do good training topics. So we don't have a huge amount of different trainings on there, but we've got the basics, the important stuff that people need to have, that kind of thing. So over there at DOT University. So check us out, dotuniversity.org. And if you want to get like some group classes, some stuff like that, talk to Luke. He is the Front Range Compliance and DOT University Training Coordinator. So, yeah, either you guys book classes with him or I'm going to end up firing him. No, just kidding. Just kidding. So, all right. So, with that being said, got a lot to talk about today. I think, first off, let's talk a little bit about the weekend. So, we had another little family get-together this weekend, Sunday night. That was pretty cool. Always great. Anytime I can get, especially with my two new little grandbabies. Well, not too new little. I've got Nolan, who's going to be turning 3, but we got little Mia, who's 2 weeks old now. I just absolutely love hanging out with the little bundle of joy. She's just as sweet as can be. So quiet. I think I've only heard her in 2 weeks. I think I've only heard her cry once.
I haven't heard her cry a single time.
It was like very short.
Yeah.
So like Nolan, he was not that way.
No.
Nolan was very vocal.
No.
So, but I think the highlight of everything was Nolan and Kratos. So Kratos is my Cane Corso or Cane Corso. If you're a breed enthusiast, you're going to be like, it's a Cane Corso. If you're just a normal human, you're like, yeah, it's Cane Corso. Not a King Corso. That's not a thing. Cane Corso. But yeah, we get the videos. I know Keith wants to do an episode about our dogs and that kind of thing because they are fun. But yeah, we got Mr. Kratos here. Probably hear him snoring every once in a while when we're recording these things.
Yep. So if you hear a little bit of rolling thunder in one of these, that's probably him snoring.
Yeah, snoring or farting. It's one of them things. But anyways, so yesterday Nolan was running around with we've got this toy. It's a big leather strap and it's got a handle and a rope tied to it and then a handle so you can swing it around. And Nolan loves to just get that and run across the grass and Kratos will play with him and they play so good together. It's rather entertaining. We got to get it on video one of these days. It's pretty great. So we got together. We had a little family get together. I love the family time, so that was fun. Saturday, I went and shot. So trying to get my skills better, this and that. So Holly asked me what I wanted to do, and I said, hey, you know what I'd really like to do? I'd like to run up and shoot around. And, I have now figured out how to do that by yourself, because there's the way you manipulate the buttons on the controllers. You can set up a timer and you can go shooting. So I was like, yeah, you're going to go to your Pilates class and I'm going to go and do some shooting. The only problem is her Pilates class is 50 minutes. Me going up and shooting, that's going to be, 3 or 4 hours. So she kind of looked at me like, well, how come you never want me to come with you? That, that look. Mm-hmm. And I was like, no, yeah, if you want to come up, that'd be great. So she was happy. She's like, yeah, I'm going to come up and go shooting with you. So we went up there, and as soon as we got there, I was like, there was nobody on the course, but there was people like doing stuff around the course.
Yeah.
And I'm like, ooh. And you pull in, they got all their banners of all their sponsors. And I'm like, well, crap, I should have checked the schedule, because they had a sporting clay event going on. So sporting clays was out, but they were setting up the event, and they had the big tents and all kinds of people there. And I was a little sad, because if I would have known that there was a sporting clay event, I probably would have just signed up for it and went and shot whatever the event. But they had the Helping Heroes event yesterday, and I don't know how it went. It looked like they were having a lot of fun. And the reason I'm going to say it looked like they were having fun, because right along the road that you drive by one of the stands, they had at each of the stations for the competitors, they had toilet seats sitting there. And when we got there, no shooters were out, but when we left, there were shooters. And yes, they were sitting on the toilets shooting. And I'm just a little jealous, because I'd like to be able to say, yes, I am so into sporting clays that I even shoot them off of a toilet. So that was rather interesting. Holly wanted to stop and take some videos and pictures, and I was like, no, we're not part of the event. But, I'm definitely going to figure out what the Great Gun Sporting Clay schedule is, and I'm definitely going to be joining some of those events next year.
Heck yeah.
And that was pretty wild. I wanted to drive through the whole course and check it out, see what else crazy they had set up. But I don't know how you get much more crazy than shooting off of the toilet seats.
Yeah, right.
That was rather interesting. But, yeah, it looked like they were having a lot of fun out there. So since I couldn't shoot sporting clays, I decided to go up to the skeet houses. So they've got part of the course has got like 5 stations, and you can shoot. They're all the clays are going to fly right to left or left to right, high or low. And I'm struggling really bad with my right to left cross. And I was like, well, this is a perfect time to go pass it. Personally, I've never shot out of the skeet houses before, so I didn't really know what to expect. And it was a little bit humbling for me, because it's a much shorter window. You don't get to follow them. By the time that it starts its arc and starts to descend down, that's kind of your breaking point, where it just kind of hits that little point, and that bird kind of slows down enough and it changes its angle and starts to go down. It's a great place to hit your break if it's within your zone. And yeah, that zone, because it's in that tight little area between the houses, it's much faster, and they're very close to you, so they are moving. I mean, it is you got to be on it. And I was like, okay, yeah, I need to learn some more skills. I'm gonna master this, but I was a little bit humble. But I will say this: we got it set up, figure out how to use it, and I'm standing out there, right, and I'm like, Holly's gonna be my button pusher for the day, and I'm standing out there, and I'm like, okay, I'm ready. I yell, pull. And, of course, I've shot a few times already, and nothing comes out. So I'm just kind of sitting there, and I'm like, pull, and nothing comes out. So I look over at her, and she's sitting there with her phone, and she's videoing or taking pictures of me, and I'm like, hello. She's like, oh, sorry. But we had a lot of fun. I was hoping to do a little bit better, with my wife watching me, but, definitely going to learn. But I'm heading back out there today. I got my next with my instructor, because I've been trying to get on top of some of these skills. Learned a ton, definitely improved on that score, but still just struggling with that right to left shot. It is just kind of kicking my butt. I don't know if my eyes cross or what. It's just a different angle. But left to right, I tend to break that one a little bit more. Well, not a little bit, a lot more, but those right to lefts are just a big struggle for me. Yep. So working on that. If you want to come out shooting, hey, if you're local here in Colorado, always looking for someone to go shoot some sporting clays with, trying to get better. I've decided that I just need to do it all the time. I mean, I want to go pro. That way I can just, hey, I'm going to go do this instead of doing the DOT thing. Of course, I'm joking. I'll never do that, but definitely want to get more involved in that as a good hobby, that kind of thing. So with that, that was kind of the weekend that we had going on. Today I wanted to kind of showcase a couple regulations that we kind of been getting some questions on quite a bit. So I'm going to talk about two different sets of rules. The first one that we get a lot of questions on are light and reflectors, and a lot of that is going to be, going clear back to the beginning of time. So a lot of questions on lights. One of the things that I've noticed is when I'm teaching a class, there's a lot of confusion on the lights and their type of lights that are around a commercial motor vehicle. And I'm not talking about the no-brainer lights. Like, if you don't know what the no-brainer lights are, you probably ought to get a new profession. And when I mean no-brainer lights, I'm talking about headlights, brake lights, turn signals. I mean, everybody, if you've been driving for any amount of time, you know what those lights are. Mm-hmm. I can say turn signal lights, you know what those are. But if I say marker, clearance, or identification, it seems like the industry as a whole, even enforcement, it's like everybody is so confused on some of these lights, and they're required, and so we do kind of get those, but then you get those trucks. Kind of jokingly refer to them as the Christmas tree trucks. They've got all kinds of chicken lights, tons of lights on them, different things like that, and the thing about it is like, what are the required lights? So I asked the question, if a commercial motor vehicle's got a light, and we're talking about one of these trucks has got the chicken lights, just tons of lights on it, which of those lights have to work? And for years, and even still today, the common answer is all of them. If a commercial motor vehicle has a light on it, then that light has to work. And that is not true. It may have been true once upon a time. So let's go back in history. Let's talk about this. So Luke, when did the trucking rule start? Do you remember? DOT rules, regulations?
Was the
I'll give you a hint here.
1920.
It was in the 20s. You can just say the 20s. It was in the 1920s. Is when
I remember they had their 100-year anniversary a couple years ago, I want to say. So
well, I've been declaring that we're in the 2020s, so we're in that cusp of the 100-year anniversary, right? I couldn't tell you the exact date when it started, and to be honest with you, it doesn't really matter. But it started in the 1920s. So back in the day, when you would look at transportation and interstate transportation, that's when the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration was born, Department of Transportation, and it kind of grew into what we have today. So, when you go back into test of time, even if you look more recent, if you just go back 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago, and you look at what commercial motor vehicles were to what they are today, they look very boring, very bland, very plain. The lighting configurations were just that. They were just like the bare bones minimum. Well, that bare bones minimum is the minimum lighting requirement. They didn't have the technology to power and run all the lights like they do today. So when you looked at those trucks, they were very boring. Well, back in the day, between the 1920s up until, 30 years ago, people would say if a truck had a light on it, then that light had to work because that was how they were built. That was the only thing that they knew. The problem is technology changed, but the statement stayed the same, and the statement didn't evolve. The truth of the matter is the only lights that are required to work are the required lighting devices. So meaning you can have a whole lot more on there, but not all of them are required. Some of you are probably hearing me say that, and you're like, well, duh, we've known that forever. But that's not necessarily the case, and that's not what I see from training and working with technicians. So just to kind of support my statement here, if we go to 393.9, so 393 is the parts and accessories necessary for safe operation. I would love to tell you that in that section, it has all parts. But that is so not true.
That's not true.
Because in part 396.3, A1, paragraph, it basically is the catch-all that says any part or accessory that is a safety defect or could affect safety has to be in good, proper working order. So the feds have just kind of a little catch-all rule. But these are a lot of the rules that are in here that do have them. Lights is, of course, one of those. But when you read 393.9A, the title is Lamps Operable, Prohibition of Obstruction, and Lights and Reflectors. And then we get to paragraph A. It's 2 sentences. And I love this. I tell people all the time, I'm like, look, this is you go back to your shop and you get your buddy to buy you a breakfast burrito situation because you ask that question. Like, does that light have to work? And they say, well, when lights have to work. Well, here's the thing. This question says all lights required by this subpart. So let's go ahead and stop right there. So that is kind of leaning toward like, oh, required by the subparts, all lights required. And it says shall be capable of being operated at all times. So sentence number 1 just says all lights required. So that should cue up to, hey, maybe there's some required lights and some no required lights. But hey, maybe this thing's going to go on. This paragraph will say any additional light shall also be capable. But that's not what it says. It says this paragraph shall not be construed to require that any auxiliary or additional lamp be capable of operating at all times. So right there, that is going to be your winner chicken dinner. You bet with your buddies in the shop, you get them to buy you, the burrito or a Coke or, however you use that little bet. But that is a great rule. And it's just one of those things that, it's really great to know. I think that there's definitely a benefit in having all the lights. The reason that the commercial companies will put more lights on their trucks is so they can be seen. So it's to promote safety and a culture of safety. I even know companies, here in Colorado, that use those fancy lights in these different configurations as part of a reward structure. So the longer and the better performance a driver has, the more budget they get to invest in their truck and dress them up and that kind of thing. And I think that's a really great incentive. And I think it's a great incentive to promote safety so that we can be seen out there. So if 100%. You get those lights, you are obligated to make sure that you keep them working because, you got all the billboard lawyers, that are the truck chasers, truck crashers, they're out there saying, well, you violated your own terms or you're not doing your part to stay safety. So they're going to twist anything they can to go against you. However, regulatory wise, the DOT is beholden to the rules so that they cannot write up something that does not work. So it's good to know the rules. Well, headlights, turn signals, brake lights, those are always required. Okay. Yep. But the ones that go around, the chicken lights, things like that, when we go down the side, that's going to be your side marker lights. When we talk about the width of the vehicle, those are going to be your clearance lights and identification lights. Well, every time you see a truck, 10 miles away from you in the middle of the night, it's a truck because it's identified to you by, you got what? What identifies it?
The ID lights.
The ID lights. And which ones are those?
Those are the 3 top of the cab, the 3 ambers that are super close together. And then there's the 3 reds on the rear of the truck.
Exactly. Those are called your identification lights. So I like to remind people, hey, lights are named after their function and purpose. Yep. Going back to those no-brainer lights, headlights light ahead of you, turns indicate which way you're turning. You get my point. So the same thing, when I look at a truck, I'll point to a side marker light. Even after I'll explain this to them, someone will say, that's a clearance light. And I just have to shake my head. And I'll point to the ID lights, and everybody's like, those are the cab lights. Those are the DOT lights. That's the running lights. Everybody's got names for them because we as an industry, there's a lot of things that we're still confused on, and lights is one of them. So identification lights, the reason they're named that is because any vehicle over 80 inches in width is required to have that cluster of 3 lights mounted as high as practical. So we see them on the top of the cab typically, and then on the back of the trailer or the back of the truck, depending on what kind of in-gate we've got. If it's going to be an enclosed van body, if it's got some type of frame or structure where they can run lights, sometimes you see them mounted high. If it's just a thin skin with the swing doors, and there's no way to mount that light up there, so typically you'll see those mounted typically right below the doors as high as practical. So that's going to be your ID. Any vehicle over 80 inches in width is required to have the front and rear identification lights. That lets you know from a distance, you've got a larger vehicle on the highway rolling towards you because it's identified itself. Whereas clearance lights are designed to mark the clearance. So as we pass each other left to right, we can see, where the wide points are in the vehicle. So technically, per the regulation, it talks about clearance lights. You got to have 2 of them mounted high as practical. So that's where you see those cab lights on the outside, the 2 wider lights from the identification lights. But you see them in additional place. You have 2 ambers down in the headlight assembly. Those are going to be the widest point on the vehicle. Yep. And a lot of times in like dualies, pickups, they got the cab lights, but they also have to mark, I shouldn't use the word mark, but they have to indicate the wide extreme, so you will see the clearance lights. So if you look on the fenders of the dual, you'll usually see an amber at the front and a red at the back, because that indicates where you're going to clear them. That's the widest extreme. Sometimes you see like a utility truck where he's got the cab and then he's got a big box behind it, but that box goes through and it's got wide extremes that stick out past the cab, and you'll notice that he's got those clearance lights on that. So those are going to be your different clearance lights, okay? And then we've got some additional lights. So we've got the markers. So again, named after their function and purpose, markers mark the side profile of that vehicle. As it's crossing in front of you, you've got the front, middle, and rear of your markers. So again, when you go through, you look at the different lighting configurations, especially like the chicken truck, with the chicken lights on there, the Christmas tree truck. When you look at all those different lights, if one light goes out, you probably have another light that can fill that gap. So it's less violations. So for the sake of safety, if you put them on there, you're going to repair them just like a windshield, right? You're allowed to have a single crack in a windshield. However, I don't advocate that we drive that, because that windshield crack, that is an obstruction, such as when you're driving, maybe you can see past it, you can see everything good. The problem is how many times do you ever catch yourself staring at the crack, right? Mm-hmm. It happens to me all the time. I get a crack in my windshield. I'll be driving down the road and I'm like, why am I looking at the crack? Because that causes your vision to distort, because your vision will cross. You're not cross-eyed, but your vision will cross, and that distorts your vision out there. So it is adversely affecting safety. So even though the DOT says, hey, you can drive with a single crack or a chip that's not bigger than 3/4 of an inch in your windshield, I would still look at replacing those, because it promotes safety, that kind of thing. Lights, if you've got the chicken lights on there, you're kind of obligated. You committed to being lit up going down the road. You want to make sure that you're maintaining and keeping those running. However, the DOT only has authority over those. That's a big lighting question that I do get into about with some of the rules. I could go on about lights for probably an hour, so I'm not going to get too much deeper into that. The next rule, got a question, in fact, this morning. It came in late Friday night. I got back to the company this morning, and it was about rear impact guards. Yep. So rear impact guards, very interesting. Regulation-wise, we're looking at 393.86, and then don't forget, a few years back, okay, they incorporated the rear impact guards into Appendix A, so the minimum periodic inspection procedures. Overall, it's pretty basic. When it comes to checking your impact guards, you're checking mounting, you're checking to make sure that they're not damaged, that the cross tube for the impact, the actual tube at the bottom, the 4x4 tube, that everything is intact. They did remove under 393.86 paragraph A, they did remove paragraph 6 back in February for the requirements of the DOT spec plate or certification. That is out. So paragraph 6 is no longer part of the regulations. So you don't have to have that stamp or that tag on there that says it was manufactured in the DOT, certification, that kind of thing. That part has been removed. So that is, and it's not part of the annual inspection, but the rear impact guards are. I think the biggest thing, one of the biggest questions I get, and kind of today why I decided to throw lights in there with it, because even though we're talking two different sets of rules, one of the same things happen. And that is going to be, who are they applicable to? Okay. Rear impact guards, 393.86, are applicable to trailers that are more than 10,000 pounds. So if they are of such height that a vehicle could get sucked up underneath them, so in the rear impact guards, if they're manufactured from 1986 until today, which is the bulk of what we're going to be inspecting, it's got to be within 22 inches. So if that trailer deck is raised up, if it's higher than that, it's going to have a rear impact guard to prevent a vehicle from going up underneath there. So with that being said, okay, we've got the mounting, the guard, okay, the height from the road, and that it can't be tucked in more than 12 inches from the rearmost part of the vehicle. So we do have the rear impact guards. Now you have the old ones also. The old ones are going to be manufactured from I think it was 1952 until 1986. I don't remember the specific date. I know I've got the rule book open here, but I don't think for the sake of this it matters. But with that being said, those are substantially smaller, okay? So when we talk about width, so when we talk about that cross tube, that 4x4, that cross tube on the current rear impact guard has to be within 4 inches of the outside extreme of the vehicle. It can be flush, but it can't extend more than the outside extreme. So when you're doing your inspections on those, you're going to drop a line and just make sure that it is within 4 inches. It's not the tube, that cross tube of the impact guard is not more the horizontal member, I think is what they refer to it in regulation. We want to make sure that that horizontal member is not more than 22 inches off the ground, and it's not tucked in more than 12 inches from the back of the vehicle. But it's only applicable to trailers, not trucks. It's worded right in 393.86. And I do get that question a lot about the rear impact guards on the trucks. But again, that regulation is only applicable to trailers. Now, the reason that I kind of mix and match those two with lights is due to the conspicuity requirements, the DOT reflectorized sheeting, that kind of thing, red, white tape, whatever you want to have, because you got to have it on the back, you got to have it on the truck tractors, okay, and you got to have it on 50% of the sides of your trailers that are over 10,000 pounds. So again, we talk about lights and reflectors. You are allowed to go above and beyond with your lights and reflectors, but conspicuity treatment is not applicable to trucks also. So that we find that in our lighting requirements in Part 393. It is not applicable. But you see a lot of people that you see a truck going down the road and it's got conspicuity on it. And I've even seen roadside inspections come in where the conspicuity is peeled off of like a dump truck and the officer writes them up for that. And I love to make that call, especially if I know the officer. I like to say, hey, dude, tell me about this. Why'd you write this up? Well, because his tape was bad. Well, I understand that, but what regulation are you quoting? You know? Mm-hmm. So those are some really fun questions, especially since I used to be some of their trainers. I've been out long enough now. There's been enough turnover that I haven't trained everybody that was in there. So, you know, it's new names and then they take it personally just because they don't know me. But it is what it is. But I still like to have those conversations with them because, again, conspicuity is not applicable to the rear of a truck. It is applicable to the rear of a truck tractor, but not the same. So with that type of thing. But we kind of run into also, there's one other thing with lights that I've been seeing a lot of that I just want to talk about that you might want to keep an eye on. When you see a trailer come out and it's the rear side marker light. So your side marker lights, remember, they go amber, and then the back is always red. And we only have to have an intermediate when the overall length of the vehicle is more than 30 feet in overall length. So typically you're going to have one in the front, one in the middle. The middle one can double as a blinker light. That is a permissible lighting configuration. And then you got the one on the back. Now, the front and the middle, the intermediate one, they don't necessarily have a maximum height requirement. They have to be at least 15 inches from the road surface, but they don't have a cap. Like, they can mount those as high as they want. So you go back to that Christmas truck, okay, it's got tons of lights. The bottom one goes out, still got one up high. Hey, it's still good, okay? The rear, though, has a height requirement. It's got to be within 15 to 60 inches, okay? And you see trucks, little box trucks, you see van trailers, trailer bodies, you know, all that kind of thing, and you'll see the red one way up high with no light down low. And that one, I have not been able to find anything that says it can be mounted high. In fact, this morning, as I was kind of prepping for this, I decided to do some more digging to see if I've overlooked it. Still can't find that. So if you did get like a little box truck and it's got a little enclosed box trailer on it and that light is mounted high, I might want to just tell your techs to just drop a line and put a little LED down low where they're supposed to have that little light, because it is required to be mounted between 15 and 60 inches, which in layman terms, that's going to be mounted right about 5 foot. So anyways, that's about all I wanted to get into on the regulations. The last topic of the day, Luke, you found this article.
I did.
I thought it was pretty good. It was it came out from NATME, or the information. It's not necessarily an article by NATME. They posted it more as information, so I don't have an author and this and that. They, I think within their own, they said that this was a reprint from 60 Seconds with STC from June 2026 edition. So they just put up some good information, and I just kind of it's definitely some great information, and it's most definitely a TAFO because once again, FMCSA, y'all just dropped the ball. How many dumpster fires can we just see with you guys over and over and over? decision was made. Let's see, ELDs. We go back to ELDs. That was in between 2016 and 2019 with the big push of the ELDs. And then we had the entry-level driver training, the CDL training. That popped up a few years back. So we had that big topic. And then we turned around and, we had the medical examiner certification. I mean, that goes clear back to 2015. And here we are now, 2026, 16 years later, and they're finally deciding, hey, you know what? Some of this stuff isn't working. Well, a little too late for some of that, because you look at all the headlines, you look at the crashes that are happening, and you look at everything that's happened between the English-speaking drivers, between people getting CDLs that shouldn't get CDLs, and this whole system is just kind of a mess, and it has led to this massive amount of people that are driving that should not be qualified to drive, which lessens it. It's harder to get good people that are properly qualified and can safely operate these vehicles. So this whole article is titled "The End of the Honor System." So with the end of the honor system, the FMCSA has relied for years on self-certification, whether it's going to be, the physical examiners that are going to be doing the medical qualifications. They do this honor system of, yes, I am good. I am a chiropractor. I am good. Okay. And I'm going to tell you right now, if all you use is chiropractors to do that, I would probably be a little more judgy. I know there's some great ones. I don't want to knock all the chiropractors, because I know some that do a really good job, but I also remember the days of, back behind the truck stop, you had the little RV out there and a 90-year-old retired chiropractor that had a line of people. You just show up, you fill out your paperwork, you got a new medical card. So some of that still goes on. So again, some of the questions that I get is like, hey, so-and-so is having a health problem. Like I just recently had one where, a driver is he can't turn his neck. So the company is looking at him and say, the guy can't turn, and look, we took him out, we did a road test with him, but they're looking at the guy saying, hey, he can't really turn and see. He can't use the mirrors to the best of his ability. He can't look out his windows and see everything. And I was like, well, it sounds to me like you've got an internal disqualification. But they were really looking for a regulation to hang their hat on to say, hey, you know what? We need to pull this guy out, and it requires a medical doctor or a medical examiner to redo the medical card. So if you feel you've got an injury, you've got a situation where a driver is no longer qualified. The only problem is send him to a chiropractor. I don't know if he did an adjustment on him and said, you're good to go now. Just come back, every other day and we'll adjust you. But apparently he went to a medical examiner, chiropractor, and he gave him a medical card. And it's like, the company's like, well, the doc says he's good. How are we supposed to continue to take him out? I'm like, yeah, that's a problem. This might want to, within your own policy, set up and who you're going to do your physical examinations with, and actually pick a good qualified DO to go, or a nurse practitioner or somebody, an advanced practice nurse, but not to the same old chiropractor. So that kind of thing. But you can also send him in, with a note saying, hey, this is our concern, that kind of thing. But anyways, it's definitely a problem. But it just kind of showcases that the honor system, that they just let tons of people do this. Well, they did the same thing with the electronic logging devices. They let, it was hundreds, probably turned out to be thousands. It was, you're an ELD. You have to have this, and this to self-certify. Well, I remember when ELDs were first coming in, you'd get all the spam callers, and one of my favorite ones was cheapeld.com. I don't know if there's still a thing. I'll probably get a thing from a lawsuit. I'm not saying they're not a real company. I'm not saying this. I'm just saying it seemed kind of weird, because the people that would call me, I remember I would ask them technical questions, and it's like all they could answer, all they'd tell me is, well, it's cheap. It's only $19 a month. It's cheap ELDs. Cheap BLDs. And I had a really hard time. I'm not going to say what accent they had. I think our audience knows exactly what I'm talking about. They're just calling over and over and over, and it's cheap ELDs. Well, I would say, okay, well, tell me how your ELD does this, and they couldn't answer any of those questions. And that they were none of them were decent or would really qualify. But hey, they got in. So the feds for years just let these things stack up. And then we've had this with the driver schools. They put out the requirements, because we kicked around the idea, said, hey, you know what, through DOT University, we could run one heck of a driver school. Okay. Yeah. Started looking at the requirements, and I looked at Luke. We had a big conversation, a meeting on it. And I was like, look, this is a business all in itself. Looking at all these requirements, and it's just not in our realm. But we know lots of people. We know some great driver schools that we love to recommend. But of course, what happened is we got. So with the ELDs, with that self-certification, they were just letting pretty much anybody, they were coming out of the woodworks. Everybody had some. So here we got hundreds, if not thousands, of new software programs. And from basically 2017, they went full live in 2019. So for the last 7, possibly 8, 9 years, same situation. So this whole honor system thing clearly has not been working. We had the driver certification. We've received phone calls. It's like we've seen it here in Colorado where one of our clients, their driver was all of a sudden canceled, got a letter from the state saying, hey, you're going to be retested at this point because they determined that driver school is not doing what they need to do. Yep. Again, an honor system situation. So why now in 2026 are they finally catching on that, hey, you know what, some of these programs weren't working? So the article says the numbers are sobering. You know what? I think they're more than sobering. I think they're alarming. Mm-hmm. It's insane. So it says right in here that because these cracks in this system becoming possible to ignore, well, yeah, we have a major problem. We have tons of disqualified drivers that are driving, people that don't truly know how bad decisions are being made, and they're really wrecking the vision of what trucking is. And this industry as a whole is probably one of the absolute most professional bunch of people I have ever had a chance to work with. But yes, when you get one knucklehead comes in, they just kind of wreck it for everybody. Yep. Well, that's kind of where we're at. But you know what? FMCSA, you all played a big role in this by not putting in the systems and the steps in place to ensure that things are getting done right. An honor system, what part of telling you this is going to work? Look, you buy an honor box at a store, pretty soon you got no candy and no money. Mm-hmm. I mean, that honor box of candy bars and snacks, yeah, people just grab and go, oh, I'll pay it later. Yeah, that honor system doesn't work out very well. Well, what do you think this industry, especially with so much fraud that goes on and theft, you have a big problem and you are a contributing factor. So it's about time you step up because enough is enough. You're ruining this industry. I mean, the lawsuits have gone so hard. People can't even afford insurance. There is no undoing what has already been done. You guys have really messed this up for a lot of companies. And they're saying, hold on, this is going to take years to fix. Well, yeah, it is going to take years because you guys created a problem. So it's about time you start stepping in. I hope they're truly going to take it serious. But it says that the FMCSA, they revoked 37 ELD devices in 2025. They rejected another 200 before they were able to reach the market. I mean, it's just like, no different. We go to a company that for 40 years, they never did drug and alcohol testing, and they realize, hey, we're supposed to have this program. So we go in there, 3/4 of the company all test positive for different types of drugs. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, that's because the criminals flock to the area. So they're like, hey, this is a scam. They revoked or prevented 200 from coming in. Yeah, they're just coming out of the woodwork. Hey, this is a great place to make money. It's an honor system. All you got to do is say, yeah, we got an ELD and it works. We're back to that other ELD situation. So far now in 2026, an additional 39 devices have been purged out of the approved list. And it's just insane. And then when we look at the training side, nearly 3,000 training schools have been purged, from the registry, the training provider registry. 3,000 nationwide. Those are people. I mean, 3,000 schools. I want to know how many CDL drivers that is. That is just, it's mind-boggling to me. It's not surprising, especially when you said, hey, you just have to have this, and this, but nobody's going to check it. You can just come in and sign these papers and say, hey, you can get a CDL, and they'll give it to anybody. And some of these guys are paying anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000 to $12,000 for a CDL, and you just do a mass sweep and just get them in there because nobody's checking you. They said we can do audits. Well, thank goodness they wrote that into the rule because I think that discovered, we got a major problem. So right now they've got another 4,500 that CDL schools, so 3,000 wiped out, 4,500 are on notice right now, okay? And that is going to be after the FMCSA deployed 330 investigators, and they did an audit of 1,600 different training locations. Well, that tells me, well, if they got training locations, they must have multiple schools at different locations.
Yep.
So, because those numbers, they're not kind of mixing and matching. So they probably wiped that out, no different than chameleon carriers. Well, if we lose one, we still got 3 or 4 others to fall back on. It's just absolutely absurd.
It is.
So that's a total of more than 6,800 unqualified training providers so far that have been removed from the FMCSA TPA training registry. So, just blows my mind. Then we talk about the stuff that goes on with the medical cards. Okay, go get your medical card. Okay, well, this is who I'm going to. And we get that complaint of medical cards, like, driver goes to the doctor and the doctor says, hey, you're unhealthy. You need to fix this. So they just go to another one. They go to one of the medical card shops that gives everybody a medical card. Well, when it comes to this one, it says since April of 2025, so just a little over a year, over 15,225 medical certificates that have been issued to drivers by just in Houston alone, 2 Houston area chiropractors, 15,002 medical examiners. I mean, tell me there's not a lot of fraud going on in the medical side of this, too. And I can tell you right now, I can think of at least a couple dozen just up in our area alone that I feel should be visited, because those chiropractors had improperly certified them. Again, I'm not beating up on all the chiropractors because I can also name some that do a really good job. However, I'm going to say this, okay, there's a lot of fraud going on out there. There's a whole lot of people making money. Reminds me of that phone call I got several years ago from the FMCSA saying, hey, well, you trained this guy that does inspections, and he said that you could do it this way. I was like, well, I can tell you right now, that's not true. And the guy was doing 60 inspections a day. And I'm like, nope, I did not train him to do it that way. And I've done the inspections, right? And the company called me up, wanted me to come do inspections. I went out to his yard. He had 40 vehicles to inspect, and I was like, because we usually only do annual inspections for our clients. But this guy's like, I got 40 of them. I'm like, that's a good week's work. I'll go out there and start plugging away. I was out there for like 3 hours. I was on my 3rd or 4th vehicle combination. And he comes out and says, well, you about done? I was like, no, I think I'm on number 3. And he's like, oh, everybody else we hire, they're done by now. And he kind of watched me. He's like, oh, wow, you're actually doing inspections. I was like, yeah, that's the job. I'm gonna be here all week working on this. And what's really funny is that company never asked me to come back.
No, of course not.
No. Not when the crooks are gonna spoil them. So, anyways, kind of coming back to this, medical examiners, two chiropractors, 15,225 certificates that were issued by them were improperly certified and they got revoked. So, and across all these 3 programs, the pattern is exactly the same. Fraud. The honor system does not work. Shame on you, FMCSA, for even allowing that and then standing around and just kind of looking dumb, picking your nose and can't figure out why there's so much fraud in this system. It's because you allowed it. It's absolutely. So what is the FMCSA doing about it? Well, good old Derek Bars, he declared that the self-certification's going away. A direct quote would say, we will do away with anything that has to do with self-certification at the FMCSA. This is what he made a statement in December of 2025. So, yeah, that's about 6 months ago. But still, Derek, you know what? I can come up with dumb statement after dumb statement that you have made. You guys have got to pull your head out. Now, I don't put all the blame on you, Derek. Not at all. This program, these things have been going back to at least 2015 or a little bit before that when they started the medical, the certification process. They started requiring that the medical examiners. But y'all got to take a hard look at your programs and truly get serious about this, okay? We need to get serious about holding companies that truly need to be held accountable. The fact that civil penalties, they're just straight up not happening because they have made it so difficult for an enforcement officer to even put forth an enforcement case against a company. I have seen a company that was literally had people in their back office creating logs during the audit, and they're bringing them out. The auditors asked for logs, and the owner disappeared in the back where she had people back there making logs. And the guy knew it was going on. I knew it was going on, but I was like, no, I'm not involved in this. This is their thing. 10 months go by. We don't get news. I'm thinking it's going to be a Section 222 major case, right, from the FMCSA. 10 months from the time of the audit, this company had 3 more fatality crashes in that time frame, like 4 additional crashes, all preventable, okay? And they came back in 10 months, said, yep, we're just going to chalk this one up as audit closed, and supposedly somebody from Washington, D.C. is going to come back and re-audit them. I was just like, that is pathetic. Meanwhile, look at their crash rate. It has more than doubled in that time frame. People are dying. We're literally watching that. Absolutely absurd. So we're just kind of back to that whole mess. Y'all got to pull your head out, and you got to get on top of this to make the way for the true safe companies that are out here trying to make a difference, keeping America moving forward, but you're making it absolutely impossible for them. So you guys have got to get on top of this. So what is the FMCSA doing about it? I think you get the gist. They're slow rolling this and putting a big smile on it and a stamp saying, hey, we're going to do a good job or not. Talks about lessons from Canada. Well, when it comes to ELDs, they're going to be following that process in Canada. Hey, good for you. I think you actually did it right. It gets reviewed by an independent third party, and they certify it and make sure it works before it can be on the list. That's the way it should have been done in the first place. Somebody should have been checking these, making sure that they function and that type of thing. But you guys cut corners and we're not there. So that's going to drop the list down. I don't think that's going to affect a lot of the reputable companies, because I think a reputable company is probably using a good reputable source. And I don't want to name names for different providers out there in case I happen to be wrong and they're not reputable. But with that being said, I think we all know that we've got the companies, the crooks that are out there. Well, they're going to do it as cheap and as illegal as they can. You know what? We found that one ELD a couple months ago that was like changing. It was like altering the logs and just like AI them. And it'd be like, oh, here it is. It's all correct.
You could pay a hidden subscription fee, and you could get the ability to doctor your logs and make them compliant.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I think that company got shut down.
They did. Yeah. They got caught pretty darn quick on that.
Yeah. Oh, it's just, it goes on and on and on. So anyways, Canada, their model is probably going to get followed here in the United States, that type of thing. It talks about what is Congress doing. I think we would all agree Congress, I don't think we can count on them for anything at this point. They can't figure out which way is up, left, right, or down. So we'll wait. Hopefully they can come together. It'd be real nice if this would be a bipartisan issue and everybody could set aside their differences and actually like, hey, let's do something that's actually good for the American people. But if it's not on one of their personal agendas, or if they can't be somehow tied to one of the NGOs that's making money off of these BS schemes, they're not going to get any movement. So I'm almost at that point right now where we just need all new Congress and all new Senate, and these people just need to retire. So like we need new blood in there. You guys need to be shut off because you're just too connected to the crooks. So that being said, the industry, what are we going to expect? Well, we're going to inspect the transition. It's definitely going to be a painful transition. It's going to take years, not months. So this is going to be ongoing. Meanwhile, we're still stuck here with the crooks trying to compete with them and that kind of thing. So hold on to your hat. At least they're starting to catch on. But the honor system is dead. I'll believe it when I see it. I think they're finally woke up to it, but it's going to take some time. But anyways, kind of a longer episode today. But hey, I appreciate you hanging with us. We had a good time. Some of these fun topics that I like to talk about. Hopefully we'll get Keith back here real soon, and we will be in the recording studio. We'll be releasing those on YouTube. Is that the only place those come out?
We'll probably do YouTube and Spotify. I know we can do the videos on Spotify, but I don't know if they have like a size requirement. So I'm going to have to play around with that.
You're going to have to learn that. Yep. You're pretty much self-taught on all this stuff.
I sure am.
That kind of thing. But that's all right.
Of YouTube over here.
on the job training is some of the best training you can get. But but anyways, well, thank you for what you do. Appreciate you listening to us. Keep them moving them safe down the road and keep her shiny side up. What you move down the highway is what keeps us moving forward. So appreciate you. Bless you. God bless you all. Stay safe out there, and we'll catch you on one of the next podcasts.